So today we have the opportunity to learn from Steve Fitzgerald, a seasoned professional in the HVAC industry. Steve has over 30 years of experience and has recently retired. So, Steve, thanks for your willingness to join this BYU Management Society Learn from Professional podcast here. And so, just a couple of questions as we get started. First, what made you decide to pursue job or a career in the HVAC industry?
I chose it because I was not interested in attending university, was one reason. The other main reason would be my stepfather owned a mid-sized HVAC business, and as well as my brother was working in the business. So I had access to knowledge and was able to try it out, and I decided I liked it.
Okay, great. But you talked a little bit about your dad and your, your brother, et cetera, doing the HVAC stuff. But what helped you be successful in your career?
Oh, it's okay. Well, the knowledge, gaining 2 years of certificate in HVAC in all many different aspects of the industry, and but then several years of working for other companies really helped me decide how I was going to handle it if I ever did own a business, because I saw things and really learned what I liked, what I didn't like. Yeah.
Okay, great. And what's the best piece of advice that someone has offered you?
In as far as this industry.
Either this industry or you said you've worked for other people as well, right? Just in general, business in general.
Oh, I would say it wasn't necessarily advice. It was just observing uh, how to run a business. And actually learned how not to from several of the businesses I worked for. Yeah. If you pay attention, you can figure out what the best way is to run a business. And being organized was probably the best piece of advice that I would give. But best piece of advice probably was my stepfather, who said, "Get a trade, and you'll be okay." Yeah.
hmm Yeah, having that skill as a trade person. Okay, great. So can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you did as an HVAC professional?
Okay. Well, sure. I repaired and maintained and replaced residential equipment, and a little bit of light commercial, but I stayed with what I like doing, and that is working with customers in their homes and helping them uh, uh, have comfort by through correct maintenance and replacing equipment if they needed it. So that was mostly what I did, and a lot of venting and sheet metal too. I would do sheet metal where they needed to, where ductwork was incorrect in a home. I could take it all out in a basement and add more, or reconstruct the ductwork so that the airflow was correct.
So you kind of found your niche in residential HVAC units then.
I did. I knew that the stability of that sector was going to be better for me, and it was, even through the pandemic. Never skipped a beat.
hmm Yeah, so
Yeah,
you had a lot of little projects rather than one big project from a commercial HVAC unit then.
correct. I would be in four, five, six homes a day, unless it was an installation that took all day, but typically several houses a day, and enjoyed working on the smaller. Yeah, because it was a two-man operation, myself and another person, and I had access to electricians and other skilled professionals as I needed them, but I chose to stay small. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, and it sounded like when we talked the other day, you've kind of gone from having a larger radius to where you kept shrinking that radius of the people you're going to serve, which made the drive time less is something you kind of learned along the way.
And improve and improve my ability to get where I needed to go faster.
Hmm.
So that 30-mile radius came down to 6 miles by the time I sold the business, which
Hmm.
was attractive to the person I sold it to, of course. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Anything you learned, a little off topic, but anything you learned when you sold your business? What was the kind of things you learned when you end up selling your business?
Oh, well, I learned that if you keep good records, you can have you can have people interested. I had four buyers interested, um, but I learned that my wife doing QuickBooks and having all those numbers right out in front of you, you could see where I was, what I was doing, and that's probably that's not as common on the smaller business side. That's from what I've seen, it's not always as well done as it could be, but we were in good shape. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, that's good. Good to have a partner that kind of help you out in that front, right? Making sure the records are clean.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you get into the position where, I know you started with your father-in-law, et cetera, to where you were owning your own business?
Uh, I had to make a decision to break off from my brother uh, because his business was sliding. I could see that things were going uh, south. So I decided to break off and go on my own. And it was a little slow, but I knew that if I did quality work and showed up on time and was organized, that it would only be a matter of time. And it was probably a year. It's started to take off after about 6 months, but probably a year and a half before I started to feel like it was going to be good.
Hmm.
And then I grew it up to about 500, and then I dropped back down a little bit because 500 was a little much, so I went back down to about 425.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. And was that like a straight shot, or was there obstacles in your career that you had to overcome?
No, it was pretty gradual and pretty continuous. Uh, the obstacle really was start trying to figure out what jobs I didn't want. There's certain jobs you don't want to get into that were not installed correctly, and it was going to be a big investment to try to um, handle it, where it might take a week to straighten out, or not even, or maybe it wasn't even solvable.
Hmm.
I could pick and choose jobs. I could pick and choose customers, distances. I, it, the only obstacle is just manage it, figuring out what. And I went too far. I had 530 customers at one time, and I then I was working too much, so I
Hmm.
started to further away that I don't go that far anymore. And they were fine with that. Nobody ever had a problem with that. They understood what I was doing. Yeah.
No, I like that a lot, right? Being able to pick and choose, right? Rather than just saying we need to get bigger, 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 kind of focus on that quality and jobs that fit your lifestyle and your kind of goals, I think is important. So good. Um, so, in addition to your formal education, right, was there any other certifications that you would have to receive on a regular basis to be an HVAC professional?
Well, once you get that refrigerant handling certificate, that's good for your whole life. So that was a one-time deal. But then I did continuing education courses where I knew that I needed to keep up with technology. Uh, but and I learned a lot from other people when I was on jobs and I saw other people doing plumbing, electrical work. I had no problem going over there and asking them, "What are you doing? What are you working on?" Or when I was doing construction, light construction, I did whole houses for a while when I worked for other companies. But on my own, I only did additions. But still, I always talk to people, even at the supply houses. I would walk up to people. I was waiting for parts to be pulled from the inventory, and I'd talk to guys. What are you working on today? Oh, I've never done that before. What's that entail? So I was learning, taking advantage of every situation that I could. But no other certificates. I mean, I did go back to school and received a 2-year degree in associate's degree in business, so that helped too. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, great. So what trends are impacting your profession now?
Oh, the trend is to go high efficiency to the degree that the cost far outweighs the benefits. What I'm saying is perhaps be better to say it this way. A 95 or 96% efficient furnace was what I was selling, but there were 98% efficiency furnaces available, but they cost twice as much. So the trend, but some guys really grab onto that and they like that. I didn't think it was serving the customer's needs to sell them something that was costing twice as much and was going to cost a whole lot more to repair. So that's the trend that I avoided.
Hmm. Yeah, keeping that sweet spot, right, of 96 or 95 or whatever it is percent efficiency. So,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. Good. So, what would you recommend to somebody that was interested in jumpstarting their career as an HVAC professional?
Getting into
Yeah.
the business.
Yep.
Well, you're going to need education. Some guys try to do it on the job. Maybe 40 years ago when I was in school, people were doing that. You didn't have to go to school for it, but not anymore. You need to get a significant amount of education, unless you just want to be a helper. I mean, that's different. But if you're going to be on your own in a truck, yeah, you better get a lot of education and then a whole bunch of experience because the equipment, the variety is, well, not just the variety, but the technology that's out there uh, would requires that you get a significant amount of education. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Um, and then could you recommend any websites or periodicals, et cetera, to, kind of help them understand some of the HVAC related items?
If you read some of these periodicals that are available, you're not going to get you're going to get good information, but it's going to be it covers a lot of ground. So if you're interested in an overview, there is an HVAC. There are several. That's one thing I don't remember off the top of my head. But I would say that if you're going to look into the service part of this business, either residential or commercial, you can go online and you can get a pretty good idea what guys are doing just by going on YouTube and watching videos of what people are doing and what they're running into as far as service work.
Okay. YouTube. I like it. Okay. So what advice would you offer somebody that's getting into HVAC but also wants to have balance in their life?
Well, there's always the temptation to do side jobs at night and on the weekends. I've seen guys do that. I did it myself. I told my bosses, my companies who said, we want to hire you. And I would say, fine, but I'm going to be doing side jobs. And the agreement is obviously you don't take their customers, but your neighbors, relatives, and friends. But my advice would be careful how far you go with that because you can end up being overwhelmed because you're making more money on the weekend, but then you go to your own job and you're not as sharp as you should be. So be careful how far you push yourself because there's always more work out there, and you're never gonna. You have to draw a line somewhere and say, I'm going to take this day off, or I'm going to do this, be with my family, because the days will get away from you, and you'll start losing time, valuable time doing other things if you just focus on work.
Mhm. Okay. And, how important is networking in your career? How did you get, your customers, et cetera?
Okay, well, I did it differently. I never advertised. I only uh, uh, relied on the word of mouth. You do a good job, there are a whole lot of people. They're going to talk to their neighbor before they're going to pull out the internet and go off the internet. When I started, it was the Yellow Pages, but the people are more apt to ask their neighbor or friends who they use and do they like them. And I
Hmm.
always that answer to be, I have a great guy and he comes on time and what the other things that are needed to be a good serviceman. So that just worked for me.
Hmm.
I have confidence that I could grow it and without advertising. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned that, right? That being on time was one of those items that was key. What were the other items that was key to be a good quality
Clean,
person?
clean cut and organized truck. Those first impressions, when your truck is out in that driveway with the back doors open and you're getting in and out of, because it is a toolbox, you're getting in and out of it. People will see that, and if they see your truck is organized, that's huge. People like that. But if you're piled up with all kinds of stuff in there and haven't cleaned it out, that sends a message.
Hmm.
It's very visible. I would put down tarps in their house to all the way down to the basement because that's where the furnaces usually were. And people notice those things. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Good. Good. Is there any other advice that you would offer young adults?
And far as
HVAC or business, since you've run your own business, in general?
uh, let's see. Well, if you're going to get into the trades, my suggestion would be to learn about every one of them. You really need to know plumbing. You need to know electricity because you're the leader in a person's home as far as their mechanicals go. The HVAC guy knows the house better than anybody. The thermostats are up in the master bedroom. That you know you're going to have access to their entire house, so you need to be presentable so they can trust you to be walking all around their house looking for duct work that might need some adjustment or thermostats. Uh, so, but yeah, in the industry, you need to be trustworthy in the trades. That's a big one.
Hmm.
Trustworthy trades. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like that is showing up on time, right? When you said you were going to show up, et cetera, as it goes a long ways in that industry.
People have other things to do and they don't want to be waiting for a service guy. That's probably one of the biggest frustrations when I would go to someone's house and I'd say, they would comment, wow, you were here when you said you were here. I said, well, doesn't everybody do that? She's a plumber for 4 hours and he still hasn't showed up. No,
Hmm.
not, I shouldn't say plumbers. I've been waiting for another serviceman
Hmm.
and they just told me they'd be here sometime today. People don't appreciate that.
Hmm.
No, they have other things to do besides, like I said, waiting for me to show up.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Okay, well, thank you, Steve. We appreciate the time you've taken today to offer some advice to these young adults that are thinking about an HVAC career. Appreciate that. To wrap this video up, we can just to remind our viewers that they can reach out to their own seasoned professional to schedule an informational interview, or they could reach out to us here at BYU Management Society, and we can help you set one up as well. Thanks again, Steve. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank